Donald Trump stood at the United Nations just days ago, maybe weeks ago by the time you hear this, but days ago, let's go with that, and called climate change the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world.
It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling, all of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others.
Now, whether you love the guy or not, that's your choice. Don't really care. I frankly think he's a pretty cool human being, actually, considering all that he's done to date. But you've got to admit something. It's a pretty massive claim. Like, seriously, how can the leader of the free world not believe in such a major world-changing factor? Because that's what we've been told for a really long time. Anyway, and you know what? It forces the question, could he actually be right? Like, why would he say such a thing? So today, what I'm going to do is try and explore that. But first, I would like us to look at two platforms that have different versions of the same woke ideology that we need to furiously stand against until backing down is the only reasonable option for them. That's it. Backing down. Because we're taking nothing else as an option moving forward. The wokeness gotta go, gotta die, and we'll come against them until they decide they've had enough and they're gonna change. So that's what we're gonna do today. I'm Emeka Edwin-Nweze, and this is Emeka Unscripted. Let's get into the show for today. This episode actually starts at home. My wife Courtney runs a publishing company. It's called Appointed Media. Put it on the screen somewhere if you want to go check it out. Now, what we do in this company is we create resources to inspire healthy minds and strong families and thriving communities. That's our entire vision and mission for the platform, is to put out media that is not woke, left, or otherwise, and do something a little bit more on the healthy side. So the other day, she puts up a job ad on LinkedIn. Nothing wild, just we need a male narrator for a young adult audiobook that's going to be released soon, and I can't wait to tell you about it. It's pretty epic. It started with a whisper. That's what it's called. Actually, you can probably go online and find it now because it's already out, but it's not out yet. It's actually, the release date's not yet. Anyway, she put this out on LinkedIn because the main character is male, right? So we need a male narrator for male narration because the main character is male. Common sense, right? Male character, male voice. Like asking a soprano to sing soprano, not bass, because that's what we need. So we go get what we need. But apparently, logic is now offensive. Because what happens next is that LinkedIn swooped in, like the military police, and say, violation, discrimination, take it down. Yeah, that's right. They literally took it down. Let that sink in for a minute. Now, here's where things get really ridiculous. If Courtney had written, we specifically want an LGBTQ plus WXYZ alphabet mafia narrator, that post would probably have been celebrated, not flagged, right? Not banned, not called discrimination, and certainly not taken down. Now, we know this because we then went through the LinkedIn policies to understand what we may have missed in taking this down. And I could be wrong, but here's what we discovered in our findings. Male character, male voice equals discrimination. Exclude everyone except Alphabet Mafia equals, well, completely fine. Progress, that's what they call it. How does that make any sense? Like, well, make it make sense to me because it certainly doesn't to me. And here's the kicker. if this was really about protecting minorities, then why isn't there an explicit rule that says you can advertise for black people only or Indigenous Australians only? Where's the carve out for that? What do you call it? Carve out. Yeah, they should carve that out in the. You get what I mean? It doesn't exist. It doesn't. So don't tell me this is about some kind of illogical fairness. Don't tell me this is about protecting minorities, because the only group you're allowed to openly discriminate for is the one that LinkedIn has decided is untouchable. You know, the one with lots of letters in your name. That is not equality. That is called hypocrisy. And here is where you have to laugh or you will cry, because I think I didn't. But I was very close to crying. Can you believe that? No, you can't, because it's not real. I didn't actually cry. But here's the thing. Society now runs on contradiction that is stacked so freaking high, higher than a Jenga tower with my 5-year-old. Actually, I don't have a 5-year-old. I have a 4-year-old. And she's very terrible at Jenga tower. But if she was good, the contradictions that we will have, maybe more like my 8-year-old, because he's pretty good at Jenga tower. So anyway, you get the point. Discrimination is wrong. Well, unless it's the kind that is pre-proved. Truth is absolute. Unless it hurts someone's feelings. And morality is universal unless it clashes with the trend of the month, right? This is in fairness. This is the very definition of wokeism. That's right. I just defined wokeism for you. Yeah. And wokeism, by the way, has no evidence making things better. None at all. There is no evidence that says that wokeism makes anything better. On the contrary, it just rewrites the rules, then dares you to say anything about it. But here's the deep problem for me. When platforms like LinkedIn starts playing referee of morality, when truth and fairness becomes a preference, you don't get justice. What you get, as we've seen, is absolute lawlessness, dressed up like some kind of virtue, which is exactly what we're now experiencing all over the place. Because either discrimination is always wrong or it's not. You don't get to invent your own rules for life. There has to be a higher authority somewhere, a supreme lawgiver, or this whole thing is going to collapse into absolute chaos, and that's where we're heading as humanity. We just make up our own rules for what is right and what is wrong when morality has always been universal. And right now, let me step back a second. When I say that morality has always been universal, I'm saying that the common man has always agreed that killing people is wrong, lying is wrong, stealing is wrong, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. A child should not be indoctrinated into nonsense. Okay, maybe I'm going too far into kind of the definitions of all things morality, but you get the point. We don't get to, like, years later just decide we're just going to rewrite what is actual truth and fact of life. And right now, LinkedIn and every other work corporation are leading charge straight into that chaos. Or maybe I'm wrong and I have interpreted their policy completely incorrectly, in which case I look forward to them giving me a more clearer, more accurate interpretation of their policies so I can stand corrected. And in that case, at which point I will be deeply apologetic for what I said. Until then, I will wait. Go ahead and prove me wrong. Speaking of chaos, by the way, let's just have a quick chat. Maybe not that quick, because I'm pretty disgusted and passionately disgusted about this. Let me give you another example of one that takes the same ideology sickness and feeds it directly to our children, or at least that's exactly what they are identifying. Let us talk about Netflix for a second. Netflix recently released an animated series called Dead End Paranormal Activity, or Paranormal Park, I think that's what it's called. I'm really sure. Frankly, I will hate to give this crap more airtime than it already has, but I'll play the tiniest clip so you can see exactly where I'm coming from, okay? Yeah.
It's not the park. It's me. I'm trans, Norma. And everyone at school knows, and everyone at home knows. And being here, it's like a whole new place. I can just be Barney. And I can choose if and when I tell people. I've never been happier. And that's saying something when I spent today chased by terrifying zombie mascots. Pugsley reminded me how important it is to live your life without apology.
On the surface, it looks like another quirky, spooky adventure cartoon, right? But all you have to do is watch an episode of the nonsense they're making and using the very subscription fees that we pay them to release this, and we say it's just harmless entertainment. The lead character of this cartoon is a transgender teen boy. His best friend is a bisexual, autistic, Pakistani American girl with social anxiety. Yeah. You wonder why I describe wokeism as insanity so much? Just reverse what I just said and, you can hear it again, how ridiculous that sounds. But here's the thing. The entire show is built around showcasing and normalizing this identity disorder. And that's right, I'm calling it an identity disorder because it is neither normal nor legitimate. These ideas that have infused themselves into the hearts and minds of people, and now they're being spoon-fed to our kids to corrupt their wrong hearts with the same woke agenda. Netflix, what exactly is wrong with you? How the hell do your executives sit down in a boardroom or whatever the hell your process is for approving stuff to go on your platform, and you came up with an agreement that this is right? This is not even remotely close to what is right. You know what? Doesn't matter how they came up with it. I didn't give an absolute toss because it's not happening on my watch. Not at all. Now here's the thing. I'm not here to attack kids who are genuinely struggling with the identity or mental illness issues that our modern day insanity has inflicted upon them, because that's exactly what it is, by the way. There are very, very few. The percentage between the past and now of how many kids used to be found to have any one of these disorders has exponentially exploded. That is to tell you something. That's actually where the science is to say, this isn't normal. This stuff has been completely inflicted on them, and now they think it's absolutely normal to fit it to them on some kind of, on a platform that it's meant to be supporting them and teaching them and entertaining them. But I'm here to ask, why? Why are you pushing this into children's cartoon Netflix? Why are corporations using entertainment for young, innocent minds as a stage for their adult politics and propaganda? Now, I'm hearing some daft woke, as I speak, some daft woke human ask me, why do you care so much? Well, aside from the fact that I have children myself, and I care very deeply that this depravity does not enter into their minds, it is very simple. It is disproportionately harmful to their development. Completely harmful. Maybe you don't get it. So let me explain. Children are still forming their sense of self. Okay? They learn by copying what they see long before they can critically analyze it and think for themselves. So feeding them adult identity politics doesn't give them clarity, it gives them absolute confusion. It plants nothing but confusion into their minds. Now, maybe you forgot, Netflix and all your executives and all your work-as human beings, that you hopefully hear this, maybe you forgot what cartoon is about. But let me see if I can help you clarify that. Cartoons, for ages past, have been used as and are supposed to be a forum that we use to protect the innocent minds of children and inspire imagination. Let me repeat that again. Cartoons are supposed to inspire imagination for young people. When you turn a cartoon into a billboard for your ideology, you are exploiting children for corporate agendas. That's like, by the way, I think it's like doing an alcohol ad in the middle of the cartoon. Like just having a cartoon where halfway through the main character is drinking and getting drunk and he's laughing about it and saying this is pretty cool. Because if you and I can agree that an alcohol ad in a cartoon is corrupt, unethical, and maybe even downright evil, then we should both call this for what it is. Corrupt, unethical, and downright evil. So it needs to stop. Because here is the thing. When and if we raise a generation to believe that labels define them, we're setting them up for trouble. We are honestly about to create a significant of generational division, confusion, and a culture that can't even come together, even if human survival depends on it. You see, kids, through propagandas like this nonsensical machine that Netflix has created and is funding, are being told what category they belong to before they're even told they're humans. Let that sink in. That's not truth. That's deception. And it needs to be called out. It needs to be cut out before it burns through everything that makes us whole. So I'm not saying boycott Netflix, or maybe I am. I'll leave that with you and your personal conviction. Seriously, though, if you have shares with Netflix, maybe it's time you sell them. Maybe flood the market with Netflix shares. P.S. I'm not giving you financial advice. Do whatever the hell you want. The issue is silence. Silence is consent. We need to remind these corporations that the conservative will not lay dormant while they attempt to corrupt the minds and hearts of our children with this agenda. It's not about left or right, if that's what you're thinking. It just isn't. It's about right or wrong. If we don't speak up now, we're not just losing our children to these screens, we're losing their souls. Or perhaps you're a parent that don't care, but I do. And I leave that with your conscience to decide whether we stay silent or whether we say something. That's up to you. Now, let's move on. I got a bit passionate there for a second. Sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry at all. If you don't want to change, if you want to see something change, then you need to be willing to do something and say something about it, and that's what I'm saying. So yes, our story began with a simple audiobook narrator for an ad on LinkedIn, and now we are seeing how this ideology is rotting and has reached all the way into our children's entertainment. But what it really shows is how deep wokeism has dug into the platforms or even our policies and our culture. And here is where it ties into the biggest story for today for me. The same impulse that censors a male narrator ad on LinkedIn, the same impulse that turns kids' cartoons into activism, is the same impulse that is driving the entire economy into this green energy scam and climate conformity. And really, that is where our story begins today.
Years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world. But then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss.
You probably heard your whole life, the earth is heating up and it's our fault. Politicians, celebrities, activists tell us we're standing on the brink of self-inflicted apocalypse. If you haven't heard that, then you're living under a rock, and here it is. They insist we need to hand over our freedoms, our money, our industries to make sure that this self-inflicted apocalypse stops immediately. But how much of that is actually grounded in actual science?
55,000 years ago, it was 2 degrees warmer than it is today. All right. And I said, what about global warming? Simultaneously, all 10 scientists started laughing. All 10 PhDs from MIT, Caltech, Stanford started laughing.
Why they laugh?
Because global warming is a joke.
Have you ever thought about it? Have Have you? Okay. And how much of it is actually modern day religion built on fear, grants, and career security? Okay, you might be confused what I'm saying here, so bear with me for a moment. Come with me on this journey because I've spent some time on this. Last year, a place called Vermont in the United States was hammered by floods. So I watched this whole event on TV as the media rushed to the cameras and said, "Whoa, everyone, stop for a second. This is proof of global warming. Climate change," I don't know whatever the hell they were saying there, but it's all the same to me. Got climate change, but I'll explain all of that soon, by the way, as well. Then they proceeded to say that, this has only ever happened one other time in the past. Without even really doing research, I just thought for a second, wait a second, unprecedented, worst ever happened, climate change, global warming, only ever happened one other time 100 years ago. Well, you see, I went to do some research to find out what the worst flood was that Vermont had ever had in its history, and it wasn't in 2023, by the way. Oh, what are we? 25. Okay, yeah, actually, so maybe it's like 2 years ago. It wasn't in 2023, it was in 1927. That's right, like a century ago. Long before SUVs, coals, planes, aircraft, or your gas stove. So if global warming is something that gets worse every year, as per the wise men from afar, our modern day version of that, also known as scientists, how does the record breaker happen 100 years ago and it's happening now, but global warming is causing it now and global warming has made everything worse? I mean, you logic through that for yourself and tell me where it gets you. Here's the thing, it can't be both. It can't be brand new, but it already happened. That's not how it works. Like, that's just common sense. Because this is the trick. They take one storm, they slap on climate change on it, and then boom, instant fair, headlines. But extreme weather has always happened. Like, literally always. The only thing that is new is how we now spin it. You know, we've been studying climate change for over 250 years, as far as what I could find. We've had centuries of recorded history, ice core, tree rings, and geological data to draw from. And what the so-called climate scientists tell us is totally and absolutely different from what we know from the past. Oh yes, I'm saying that Greta Thunberg, not really sure if I said her name correctly, so was a child, by the way, who had no clue what she was talking about. These people are very own modern day wise men. That's who I'm referring to as these people. I won't make that mistake again, by the way, because I kept saying they on one of the episodes and people kept asking me who is they. I really thought I defined it. So every time I say wise men from afar for the purpose of this, I'm referring to the modern day scientists and mathematicians who, by the way, often failed, who all they do is play around with computer models instead of actual reality and claim that the human emission of carbon dioxide drives climate change, yet historical records show the complete opposite. Like, carbon dioxide is not a pollutant, it's plant food. Okay, let me explain that whole pollutant thing. We, as human beings, not good for us to ingest it at high doses, at really any dose. So yes, we can call that a pollutant, but it's also a plant food. And of course, Earth's history over the course of Earth's history, CO2 levels have varied enormously. And right now, we're actually living in a CO2 drought by planetary standards. Doubling or tripling it would actually make plants grow faster and restore biodiversity, and literally will make the planet greener. In fact, I don't know if you've seen it, but they're pictures of the Amazon tree rainforest and the large parts of China that have increased in greenery due to forestation and ecological programs that have been run in China. But guess what? China is one of the parts of the world that produces the highest amount of so-called planet-killing gases. P.S. Don't take my word for it. Go ahead and Google it. I mean, when I say Google, by the way, I did have somebody comment and ask me about, like, not everything Google says is the truth. Okay, mate, go and research it. Go ask questions. Go to freaking library. Get out a book and read it about the topic. Find a way of learning more so you confirm that what I'm telling you is the truth. And by the way, argue if you don't think it is. In fact, the idea that human emission drives global warming is simply not in accord with what we know from the past. Yes, that's right. I said it. And by scientific methods, if your theory does not match reality, you reject the theory, you don't rewrite the data and shift the goalposts. Like, that's not how science has ever worked. You look at the reality and you look at your theory, and then it starts with a hypothesis. This is what we think is happening. Then you work towards that, and you work out through a bunch of scientific methodologies, test whether your theory lines up with reality. And if it doesn't line up with reality, you don't kind of muff your theory to suddenly explain what is happening, but put your own spin on it that's based on no real scientific methods. I said that before, and I'll say it again. Maybe I sound like a scientist, but I don't care. I'm here to educate you. Yeah. Have you ever noticed every time they're wrong about this whole climate change thing, by the way, about the crisis, they tend to kind of just rename it. First, they called it global warming. Then they say, it's the rise of sea levels. Oh my God, we're all gonna die. Yeah. And then they went to global boiling. Do you remember that phase? I can't actually remember what year that was, but global boiling. And now it's climate change. A term that is so vague, it can never be disproven. That's the point. It's too hot? Climate change. Too cold? Yeah, well, climate change. There's a tornado? Yeah, climate change. Flood? Yep, climate change. You know what they've done? By broadening the definition to mean anything that happens weather-wise, they've created an all-catch narrative where they can never be wrong. Tell me you're wrong. And where any policy can be justified. A narrative that can capture every circumstance in every event, and then they put a policy behind it. And there's a reason for this. Because I mentioned to you before in previous episodes, if the government is involved, follow the money.
I'm going to kick off with this. For so long, people have been told that 97% of scientists have agreed that man is causing climate change. I've heard that from former presidents, former prime ministers. I've heard it repeated ad nauseum in the media. Is it true?
Well, thank you for having me on the inaugural Bernardi. It is true if you cook the books. And that was a survey of nearly 10,000 people who are eminently unemployable unless they can frighten us about climate catastrophes and future disasters. Out of those nearly 10,000 people, there were 3,000 who were stupid enough to respond. Now, these were not climate scientists. Many of these were activists. Many of these were people who sit around scratching themselves looking at the next thing that they can frighten us with. And out of those 3,000 responses, 77 were chosen. And the 77 comes to a figure of 77 activists who were asked a Dorothy Dixer question. Now, what that's telling us is this was cooked. And it was cooked by a chap called Cook, who has since left Australia, and the country's a much better place as a result of it. Now, 97.1 sounds like a really accurate scientific measurement. First decimal place. That survey is absolute total codswallop. That survey has got nothing to do with reality. That survey and the criticism of it can be found in 10 seconds by any journalist. They keep quoting it. Now, this means they're either fellow travellers, or they're fraudulent, or they're terribly lazy. I suspect it's all three. So we have this figure quoted all the time. It is wrong. Absolutely, totally wrong.
Government funds fear. Activists produce fear. Institutes get rich on fear. These climate scientists are trying to frighten us into panic. That's what they've been doing for years. Because without fear, well, the grants will dry up. The government say, we must act, and act fast we must, and throw billions at the climate change institutes. Yep, I'm calling them down. Rather, I'm calling them out, and I'm saying they should all probably be shut down because they don't have an actual real job. It's a job for life industry if they can pull what they've pulled off, which is exactly what is happening. A job for life industry that is completely built on alarming headlines, in my view anyway, that I share with apparently President Trump. It is the biggest scientific scam that we've ever seen. Not to belabor the point further, but I feel you need to be educated to know a little bit and understand a little bit more about the genuine science that doesn't need you to even be a rocket scientist to understand what's going on here. So let's talk about this supposed villain of the story, carbon dioxide, your CO2 enemy. We're told it's poison. We're told, cut it off. Let's tax it. Oh yeah, let's tax it. They literally make you pay tax for producing it, and you know, well, all the corporates too. That's why the tax credit thing comes in. And good old fear. We should fear it. But plants literally breathe it in. They need it to live. Just like we breathe out, we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out CO2. There is a symbiosis relationship there, symbiotic relationship, and we exchange the gas, right? That's called partnership. It's not called poison, like they would like us to believe. More CO2 means more plant growth. More plant growth means more oxygen, right? Because that's what they produce. More oxygen means better for us. You know, nicer air, fresher air. And by the way, satellites backs this. The Earth is literally greener today than it was 30 years ago. 1/3 of vegetated land is greener. Only 5% is actually browner. So tell me, how is the gas of life suddenly the gas of death? Because CO2 is giving these plants life. That's like saying water is toxic because you can drown in it. Yes, it can be bad if you sink yourself in it, but if you use it appropriately, like it's doing naturally, then it's fine. You know, the official line is, yes, CO2 is tiny. It's like 0.04% of the air that we breathe anyway. But it traps heat. Yeah, that's how it's doing this whole thing it's doing. And you know what? Technically, that is true. But here's what they actually don't mention to you. Water vapor does most of the work, okay? Each extra molecule of CO2 adds less effect than the last. And historically, CO2 was 10 times higher and the Earth was bursting with jungles and ocean. 10 times higher than your 0.04% that it is right now. So if carbon dioxide were the master knob, control knob of climate nonsense, none of that could be true. But it is. It's literally written in stones that we can observe, in fossils, in isotopes. So is CO2 really the monster under the bed waiting to crawl and eat us all up? Or just the excuse for a whole new economy built on your back through fear? And here's where Trump's word hit home. The scam isn't just the science, it's the green energy deals. So put aside the science, that, like I have said, it's not really backed by much, other than what the scientists, you know, the smart guys, wise men from afar are telling us. Billions, by the way, are being shuffled around under the banner of saving the planet. Let me strip that down for you. And I would like you to take a moment as I go through this to whip out your phone and just maybe do a little research on these things I am talking about. First one, subsidies. free money to companies that are doing projects built to grab the check. Companies doing projects for this whole climate thing, you know, new solar panels. See, these companies also get guarantees. If they fail, the government backs them. That's called taxpayer dollars, bails them out. You know, they literally award them significant amount of monies to put up all sorts of things in the name of greener planet, greener energy solution. And we can talk about what the alternative can actually be if we were actually genuinely serious about solving a problem here with climate change and actually having a greener planet. But by the way, I've just explained that it's all BS. So carbon credits, that's another one. So not only do they guarantee it, we also have carbon credits. You know, a paper promise based on dodgy maths. It's like paying your cousin to do your homework. Yeah, these big corporates. Carbon credits. I mean, look it up. I don't need to go into this in any more detail for you, but you should look it up. I actually do want you to. Green manufacturing. So welfare in a hard hat is what I call it. Constant subsidies just for these businesses that have no real model or industry financial sustainability mechanism to keep staying alive. Yeah, we literally just pay them taxpayers' dollar. Just throw money at them to do these green energy deals. And then there's the household rebates. Mostly, it benefits the wealthier homeowners. Well, renters, they're out of the picture, and if you're struggling and you can't really afford it, and let me tell you why this is bad. This is the one I'd like to kind of dive a little bit deep into for you, because you need to be able to afford at least 70% of the cost if you want to put a solar and a battery in your home. But hey, once it's there, the government may as well like use 100% of it whenever they want to complement their dying power plants, which, by the way, you're already paying for through your taxes, or you also then pay for through your energy bills. But, you know, they'll give you like 30% to install solars and batteries and all this sort of stuff. It'd be wonderful, rebates, and you can have, you know, all the extra power you want, except you're signing something every time you do it to say, well, it's not all yours, and if the government wants it, they can tap into it. This is to supply their dodgy, currently absolutely rubbish systems that they have in place to provide our power. You see, every deal, the ones I've listed, all of the mechanisms that are used to funnel billions of dollars around, every deal is sold as for the environment, I guess. But the reality, it's a money merry-go-round train. It just, you know, as long as you don't ask the ride, when is the ride going to stop? And, you know, then there will be no harm. You just stay on the ride quietly, and it's a harmless thing because, after all, we are saving the environment. If you think these scam-sounding green deals are a joke, have a look. Like I said, do some research, and you will quickly find that I'm literally not making this up. And remember when I say follow the money? So for those who is actually cashing in, well, for one, foreign investors. They swoop in, they pocket the subsidies, they ship up the profits overseas, you pay for the dinner, they eat the meal, and I promise you, majority of that money made from these deals is simply not staying in the local Australian economy. It's not staying in local small businesses, as you might think. The next one will be the bank and the big influence, and the big finance rather. Bank and big finance thrive on these climate policies, right? In fact, the whole thing is set up so that you become their personal ATM. It's literally risk-free money because the government is guaranteeing that these businesses that are popping up everywhere and doing these solar deals and all these batteries and green deals, they're all guaranteed by taxpayer funds. Yeah, your money. Because if it fails, the government just backs it. And remember, if the government backs it, well, it's not failing anytime soon. So no matter how badly it's planned, no matter how much a policy doesn't work, they just take these giant risks. And big green NGOs, they are another one. They push for these policies, then they cash in on the very credit and projects that they lobbied for. Yeah. Politicians and their big mates, well, they're the obvious. They make these big announcements, they cut up ribbons, they tell you how much they're doing for the country with these green deals, but really it's their friends that they're contracting to do the job that they know it's not worth what they're paying for it. But of course, you're not going to question it, can you? You won't, even if you wanted to. And then who loses? The everyday Australian, with higher bills and higher taxes. You tell me, how much has your power bill gone up recently over the last year? So you think I'm still lying or making this up? Go have a look. This is exactly why. Small businesses are squeezed by the cost. Honest operators are undercut consistently. And the economy itself is bent to build what's the subsidy. And the economy itself, well, that's to build what subsidizes, not what is efficient at all. You see, climate change has always happened. It's not a bug. There is no bug in the system. It is the system. For most of the Earth's history, we've literally lived on a warm, wet greenhouse planet. Sea levels have been 200, 300 meters high than they are today. Ice poles, well, at the ice poles, that's the exception, not the rule, if you actually observe Earth's history. And Earth has gone through at least 6 major ice ages. And every one of them began when CO2 were far higher than they are today. So if carbon dioxide was truly the control knob of the climate, none of that could be real. But it is. This is why the climate emergency narrative isn't science, it's a fad. It's a freaking fad, a powerful, well-funded, government-backed fad. And like many fads, embraced by power, it becomes policy, policy becomes law, and law begins to restrict your life. And that's exactly what's happening here. Prove me wrong. I'm not saying we shouldn't care about the environment. Of course we should. We should be good stewards. That is just common sense. That is called stewardship. Clean air, clean water, responsible use of our resources. I agree with that. That's not politics, by the way. That's just decency. But conflating environmental care with a never-ending climate apocalypse story gives a blank check to our taxes. It also gives them the ability to regulate and control every part of our lives. They're not protecting the planet, they're protecting their positions and their pockets. And that's just facts. So when Donald Trump says the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, this is exactly what he meant. Not just the science scam. $1 billion machine built around fear. One that you engage in. A machine that punishes the public and rewards the insiders and wrecks the economy in the process. This is why this platform exists. My hope is that I can inspire you to realize that we don't need to wait for permission to speak the truth. We just do it. We don't need permission to act. We just do it. If you've had enough of government overreach and corporate corruption and policies built on propaganda, then it's time to stand. So I'm inviting you today to go to edwin-nweze.com. You'll find a link there on the website /petition and join the vote of no confidence against our current government. Yeah, that's right. I talked about acting, so we have to act. Because if they won't represent us the way we need to be represented, we'll represent ourselves. One voice, one truth, one action at a time. Go on the website, edwin-nweze.com /petition, click on the link, and submit your own petition to say you have no confidence in the current government because they're rotting the system and stealing from your pocket. And look, climate change is real. It always has been. I'm not saying it's not. But the scam is in how the story gets told and who profits from the story getting told the way it is. Don't buy the con, be a good steward. Yes, take care of what we've been given, but don't be a sucker. Now, let's move on to the comment section very briefly, because I know what's coming. Half of you are going to read this, and I'll rather watch this, and you are going to say, finally, some will say, finally somebody said it. The other half will say, Emeka, you're crazy, don't say things like that. And that's fine. That's the point of the show. That's exactly what I'm after. This isn't a safe space, by the way. So if you're looking for a safe space, this isn't it. It's a real space. If you disagree, drop your thoughts below. If you've got evidence, bring it and challenge what I have said, and that's how conversations are had. If you're emotional, take a breath first, breathe, then type. No keyboard warriors. I mean, if you want to do that too, you can go ahead. I don't really care. And to people who keep asking, why do you care so much? Well, I don't know, because somebody has to. Because when we stop caring, the nonsense wins, and I'm not about to let that happen. If calling out dysfunction, hypocrisy, and bad leadership makes me the villain, then I will proudly play the role of the villain. If it means that truth gets a voice. So go ahead, comment, debate, challenge, say your thing. Just remember, I will read them all, or at least I'll give it a very good go at reading them all. And I'll respond to the loudest ones right here on Earth. On Earth. Yeah, right here on the show. You get what I mean, right? So by the way, if you're gonna write something real stupid, at least make it entertaining. Yeah, I look forward to it. Anyway, that's it for the show today. I am Emeka Edwin-Nweze, and this is Emeka Unscripted. Godspeed.